Yay.
All right, welcome back to the dungeon where we geek out on all things horror, thriller, mystery, and suspense. And we're double dipping in this one. Not only we're matching, we're sort of like we're doing the whole peanut butter cup thing, where the peanut butter and the chocolate, and two great things, great together. We are taking what we love here, two great things we love here: horror and heavy metal. Metal. So, how's that for a screen grab?
Yeah, that's the one you want.
So we are here with Zachary Ashford. Zachary, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. Glad to be here. So, yeah, it's sort of bright and early here in Australia. As I got up, had my cup of coffee. It's a nice time to do things and still have lots of day left. So it's a great way to start. So thanks heaps for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And you had the distinction of being the first guest that we have here in the dungeon that is the farthest distance away. I mean,
there you go.
Had people throughout, interviewed on the States, interviewed a few people up in Canada. But now you're in Brisbane, Australia, right?
Yeah. So in Queensland, sort of southeast Queensland, just up the border. So really nice state. It was a warm state for sure. It's today I think they're saying it's going to be 31 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit for you guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice day. Yeah, warm day, good day.
Cool. So at least according to my watch, it is it is 7 p.m. on Friday, and it's what time is it over there?
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Saturday morning. So call it in the future, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how's my weekend looking so far?
Look, I'm all accounts are it's going to be a blast. Basically, you're going to start. There's going to be some bright sunshine, some nice blue skies, all these kind of things. I don't know if there is where you are actually.
Excellent.
Opposite seasons and all that, but yeah.
I remember years ago, me and some friends were having. Remember when like the Mayan calendar whole thing was it was going to be the end of the world type of thing.
Yeah.
We had an end of the world party, and we just I think there was 3 bars, and we kind of bar hopped from there and stuff, and somebody had mentioned it's like, well, gosh, it's if it's tomorrow in like places like Australia, then the world isn't really going to end tonight, because as long as Australia is there, tomorrow is safe. So.
Yeah, I guess so. They said they think Sydney gets the New Year's Eve first, right? Is that the way it works, or New Zealand or somewhere?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just knew it's like we were thinking, the end of the world was going to happen on a certain date. It was like, no, wait a minute. If people on the other end of the planet is okay, if they're still alive, then there's still hope for all of us. But anyway, we're talking about. Again, talking about the horror mixed with heavy metal, and that encompasses a book that you have coming out just in time for Halloween this year. It comes out October 29th, 2024, for those of you who are watching this some other year or whatever. But it's Polyphemus, I think it's so. Now, this I understand this is the second edition of the book that's being published, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it originally came out last year in November, and then I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but horror people will know Darklit Press was where it was. And they sort of had a big meltdown this year. And fortunately, the Encyclopocalypse guys, who I've loved their work for a long time. I've sort of had a few chats with Sean, who's obviously, one of the main men over there, and had some friends who published with them with great recommendations. I reached out, and they were really excited to take the book on, and just really grateful that I can give it this second life, because it's my first novel. I'm really proud of it. It's been nominated for a few awards around the world.
Cool.
And just exciting to have this, because you think, oh, easy come, easy go, and but I guess that's the life of indie press these days. So just really exciting to be able to have this again with another press that is great. So
okay. Now, was there any changes that was made, or like updates for the second edition?
So sorry, I cut you off there, but
no, that's fine.
We started off by adding a couple of album reviews just to the back, just to add a little bit of like I don't know if authenticity is the right word, but a bit of a bonus, kind of a gimmicky kind of edition. And my friend Alan Baxter wrote a foreword for us, so that's really nice. And he's I think when it comes to Australian authors, he's one of the guys that is really leading the charge, and is kind of internationally, when people think Australian authors, that Alan Baxter's name is always going to be in the mix in the horror field. And I reached out to him, and he was really kind and said, absolutely, I'll do that. So it's nice. I was really appreciative. So,
cool. So so the book is about the band, a band that we're getting the band back together, evidently. We got so is sort of like I guess they're stage names. I mean, you tell their real name, stuff like that, but these are like their stage names. We got a guy named Oaks. He is evidently coming out of some kind of like a facility or something like that for drug rehab type of thing.
Yeah. So he's a really interesting character. I really wanted to. I think a little bit of context first is kind of, as well as heavy metal and horror, which are obviously my two favorite things. I really kind of just love tragedy as well, and this idea of these tragic characters. And because I'm an English teacher, I'm a big nerd for that kind of stuff. And I always loved the time of the year where we move the junior kids from looking at nice, wholesome books and going, right now, here's your Oedipus, your Antigone, your Hamlet, your Macbeth, and we start hitting them with these heavier texts. And there's just so much cool stuff in them. And I wanted to play with those tropes of bands who've been through these things. And it's probably not really original that the guy's coming out of rehab to rejoin the band. I mean, that's probably a story that's been told many times, but it's the flavors you put in the stories that give it the personality. And so I really wanted to do that. That this guy, ultimately we root for him, but he's so flawed that he's just going to doom himself. So, the band, he's had a heroin overdose. He's fallen off stage. And I kind of, even for that, it's Pantera fans will know there was a moment where Phil Anselmo, that was one of the things that happened to him. He fell off stage sort of right before the end of Pantera, or the original iteration of Pantera. And they sort of, that happened in Melbourne, actually, I think. But so I wanted to play with that trope and then have this character come in. He wants back in, but the band are like, dude, like, we're almost finished because of the label and ourselves, like, we want to make a go of this. And not only is it, we can't trust you, but are we doing the right thing by you? We love you, but if we put you in this situation again, are we enabling you? And so that kind of conflict in there, and and I just thought that was a really great place to start. So, building it out, fleshing it out.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the more the call outs and stuff. I mean, because this book it's definitely a tragedy of what these characters have gone through or are going to go through. But actually the rundown of the band again. So we got Oaks on vocals. That is, if the band will allow him to get in again. We got Nathan, who's the guitarist. Spiros is a guitarist. And then Chops is the drummer. And my favorite person, because I'm a bass player, is Rusty. Uh, I get it. Yeah, he's a bass player. So he comes in a little bit later, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So Rusty comes in a bit later, and I kind of, again, it's just sort of riffing on. When I was at university, I wrote as a sub editor for a street press magazine, and I kind of got a lot of the metal stuff, and it was really cool. But so you always look at these press releases and these changes in bands, and this constant kind of shuffling that goes on in bands, because I guess it's like any form of art that's not incredibly hugely mainstream. There's not often a lot of financial reward for what they're doing. It's more about the love of things, and people will have families, people will move on, and so yeah, Rusty comes in halfway through. Basically, they've had a drummer change, and they've really lucked in with their new drummer. Rusty comes in after Nate, who was playing bass, and he would tour with them, Rusty, and they were like, no, if we get him in the studio, we're now a proper band with two guitarists, and it's a proper rebuild. And so that was one of the things I kind of, again, wanted to look at these sort of real political dynamic things that happen,
right.
And just add layers of push and pull in conflict and goals, and yeah, because I think I'm really waffling and going off on a sidetrack, but
no
just any good story, it's about the emotions and the people, and sure, like there are demons, and there's a heads getting smashed in, and there's heavy metal in this book, but it really is a book that's about the interdynamics and the people and the push. Well, so many of them have their own flaws. Like Spiros has his wife, who's like, dude, you have a successful business outside of this. When are you going to grow up? She's pulling him that way. Nate is just obsessed, but he's also an alcoholic. So he's like, no, this is all I have. And he's willing to burn any bridge that comes his way. And, for his single-minded goal, which I guess is a big shout out to Macbeth in a way, I guess. So these kind of interdynamics, and Chops is the true professional. He's played in other bands, and he does studio recording, and he's being poached by a bigger, richer band, and throughout the course of this novel. And it's so I just all that dynamic stuff that you got five people there's a lot of wiggle room to create tension in that. So that's what I really tried to do. So.
Oh yeah, and you did a good job, because we get to spend some time with each of the musicians, their home life, what where they're coming from, what kind of baggage they're bringing into the dynamics of getting this band back up and running to back together. So it does have a lot of that classic tragedy and trauma type of thing. Not only just the interpersonal relationships, but like I said, the life that they have outside of the band, then just all the politics and shit that goes on within the band, and the band with the label and stuff like that, and then as if that wasn't traumatic enough and tragedy enough, we have some supernatural demon. Is it a demon, or what the hell is that?
Yeah, so it is. I really kind of, I think I wanted to play a bit with the Lovecraftian elements, and it never occurred to me till recently. But I was speaking to someone who was like, they're almost like the Clive Barker kind of demons, in that they're offering you something you want.
Right.
And they have their own agenda, which is probably your suffering. But I also wanted to play with that idea, and again, it's a trope. It's not a brand new idea. I can't claim it. That we talk a lot about bands being these gateways to Satanism and all these horrible things that you're just like, well, that's ridiculous.
The whole satanic panic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't want to pursue like the Christian Catholic angle of it, but I did want to kind of still have that trope of, pentagrams and that sort of thing. And so ideally I was just looking at them as sort of cosmic deities with a goal or an agenda. I always really liked, I don't know if you ever read the comic The Invisibles. the Grant Morrison one, where there's the demons in there. They're interdimensional and they have goals. But there's this idea that they're older than the demons of religion, and the demons of religion are probably inspired by them. And so, again, these aren't really new ideas, but they're cool ideas that are pervasive through, I think, a lot of horror literature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a way to add weight and value to the monsters. It's not just, oh yes, this is another The Conjuring with a Christian demon and prayer will save the day, and it's really about the obsession and the influence on characters. I mean, I think there are a lot of addiction themes in the book. So we mentioned the alcoholism, we've got the drug addiction, we've got the music itself. They can't pull away from, and these kinds of. So there's a lot of that in there. And again, just this single-minded kind of obsession to have this one thing. And I think that demons are a really great metaphor in there. I think I was at a convention recently, and it's Tim Napper, cyberpunk writer. He was talking about how in genre fiction, we've got metaphors that literary writers wish they had. We've got the coolest metaphors for things. And I think that's a really, really awesome perspective on genre fiction, because there's just so much of it. I just like, even like in the classroom, again, there's so much we can be like, hey, this metaphor in the Hunger Games is this, or this metaphor is this. I've got 1984, and it's not just someone being sad for a sad period. There's cool shit happening too. So so I don't know why that, but yeah. So I do waffle. Sorry.
it definitely goes upon the thing of like what are you willing to? I mean, even if the whole demonic or supernatural stuff wasn't part of the book, the seed of just the obsession and the intense focus on the music. We got to get the right sound, and so, stuff. And this one song is gonna like catapult us into stardom. And but it's like, what are you willing to give up and sacrifice to go after this dream you have?
100%. Like I this will sound arrogant. I think it would work as a story even without the demonic influences. And it's just I don't know if you're Almost Famous and these movies where bands are just doing their thing and you've got these observers watching. And there's the literature's full of great stories like this with your bands, because I think it's just as people, we love music, and therefore we're kind of infatuated with the people behind it and everything that goes on. And we love our rock and roll journalism or our pop music journalism as the stories behind things and the tragedies and the turmoils and the affairs and all those things that are the gossip pages. And I just think that's really fertile ground. So yeah.
Cause, I mean, and even if you're not a heavy metal fan, which why wouldn't you be? But the book when I was reading through is like there's just with the horror aspects, there's enough to really dig dig your fingers into and bite into. There's a lot of meat on these characters, a lot of meat on the different storylines that's kind of weaving in and out. I mean, we got at least 3 or 4 that I remember, peripheral characters like Anton and Lisa was one, and so there's a lot of like co-stars to this.
Yeah.
But if you do like heavy metal, and there's quite a bit of call-outs that just, to me, really sweetened the pot. I mean, there's I remember there's a you don't expressly call out the band Mayhem, but there's a line of dialogue in there that's like, so that it's like, so if you know about heavy metal and even just all kinds of other music like death metal, like stuff like that, they're little little Easter eggs and call outs that
Yeah,
just makes the story even more sweeter.
definitely. I definitely look to them as Easter eggs. I mean, I'd written a few novellas before this, and so the funny story is, like, after I sold my first short story back in 2018, I was like, oh well, I'm ready to write a novel now, and I wasn't, but I started it, and I sort of came up with this idea, and then I wrote it as a short story, which was pretty bad. I'm not going to lie, called Irreconcilable Differences, which is, there was that quote you always get when bands have split up. We split up to write irreconcilable differences, and it's like, okay, well, all right. And so I started playing with it, and it took a while, but I kind of knew that if I was going to spend so much time writing something so much bigger than a novella, I had to do something I just loved as well, so I could really I wrote this for me so I could enjoy writing it. And this is the book that I would want to read. And I know everyone sort of says that, but it definitely is. Like, I feel like this is me, this book, if and yeah, so much of the stuff that's like, the chapters are all named after an album that's
Right.
a cool album. And then just even like hanging out with metalheads, pop culture quotes that we use in any kind of field we're interested in, whether you're a Star Wars fan or a Simpsons fan, people are dropping those into their dialogue all the time with other people who are in the know. It's the meta language of their relationship. And I definitely did a lot of that, like when they rock up to the studio for the first time and they see the big skull on the doors and they're like, oh, this is true cult, and so that death clock, a Metalocalypse sort of tone where there's so much of it. They're not even mentioning the band, but people who know the bands go, oh, got it, and
I see.
yeah, there's no Dimmu Burger restaurant, but yeah, it's all there. And even like when they're jamming, they play Sepultura songs, or they crank up the Slayer at one moment to just work out some frustrations, and it's the Angel of Death is the riff they play, and various things like that. And horror movies as well. I mean, The Thing, Phantasm, all these movies get a shout out because it's just shit I love, and I just wanted to put it into this book. So yeah. Excuse me.
I mean, I hear it said a lot of times, like, well, write what you know, write what you love, that type of things.
Yeah, and that's right. I think I hear that. That's when I hear a lot of people write what you know, and they're like, why are these kids writing fantasy stuff? They don't know fantasy stuff. They live in the real world. And you're like, no, you're misunderstanding it. It's write what you love. If you love football, write a football story. If you just write what 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 you love, write that stuff and have fun with it. And I think, yeah, it's one of my philosophical things that I tried when we do creative writing at school with kids, is to be like, this should be fun. This is actually a really great hobby for a lot of people, even if they don't ever intend to be published. Just writing stuff down and working things out, it can be so cathartic. And I just think, like, we make it so easy if we just teach anyone who's writing, write what you love. It doesn't have to be good. That comes with practice. Just if you love something, explore it and play with it. And tropes, like I said, all these tropes pre-exist. There's tropes of tragedy, tropes of metal, tropes of horror. They're all in here. And it's just putting my own blend on them. I'm not doing anything that's super original, but my interpretation of those things is mine, and it's not someone else's. And I think people get too caught up on, what do you know? What's been done before? I've got to do something different that no one knows it. And it's like, no, just do what you love, and people will recognize that passion is the goal. Sorry, I'm really waffling. Sorry.
Oh, fine. Hey, hell, you make my job a lot easier because I just sit here and listen.
Thank you.
But I mean, this is my God. I mean, I was reading it from the ARC that was sent to me, but I mean, this is a pretty. If it's coming out in hardback or something like that, this is going to be a pretty hefty book because it's well over 300 pages or so.
It comes out at about 300. So the original Darkwood edition I've got in front of me, finishes on page 299, but that's kind of, a big book. There's got it. Sean's done some new designs on the cover. We added some red instead of some green. And it's also got the fantastic artwork. Greg Chapman, who's actually local to me, is a good mate. But I actually hadn't met him when I got him to do the art. But he just did such a cool job with, these amazing artwork. And it was nominated for an award itself. Just the art was nominated, which was really exciting to see. It didn't get across the line, but was just really awesome to just, it's everyone involved just did their best to it. And Greg was so good because I was able to just say, hey, my original conversation was a text message, and I was just like, hey, you ever read The Stand? You know those illustrations, those Bernie Wrights? Can you be Bernie Wrightson? And, which is, well, no one can be Bernie Wrightson, but Greg was like, I'll give it a shot. And he did those simple black and white drawings, and he just nailed what I wanted. I just gave him a little description of the scene, and he just, he's a talented man. He does a lot of covers and stuff, but I'll tell everyone who's getting a cover from me, ask him to draw something. He's really awesome at drawing stuff. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's cool. And then, the cover art itself, I actually, I hit up a guy who had done art for a couple of bands I like, Revocation, Black Dahlia Murder, Kaikus. His name is Jota Crevo. He's in Portugal, and this is what he does. And he did the actual cover art, which blows me away still. Every time I look at that, I'm like, that's freaking awesome. So, yeah, which is cool. You don't always get that with the cover. Sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, that's the cover. But I'm like, this one, show everyone that one. So, yeah.
I know as I was reading through this, I kept thinking about if this was a movie, or like one of the movies I thought of was Studio 666, and the whole we got to go for it, and where he got to the point where he created his own chord or something like that.
Yeah,
he created a brand new chord. And then a whole demonic aspect, and then if Spinal Tap was a horror movie, just sort of the stuff, because it's one of those things that stuff like that. It's it's a comedy, but it's even more of a comedy if you're a musician, because a lot of the stuff in there, it's funny because it's true in a sense. It's like the whole amp, you have to get as loud as you can, so you put the amp up to 11, or another one was like Deathgasm, trying to get that I think it was a Deathgasm that was trying to get the backward masking on this.
God. That was the one where there were like zombie demon things coming. I can't remember the exact niche of it, but I played the riffs and it was summoning stuff.
Sort of at this.
I need to watch it again.
Like hidden final album, or hidden lost album, or something like that. This guy was looking at. But stuff like that. But in that vein of having this fictional band, and all the stuff that was going on, and really the one thing that really drove it home to me, or hit that nail on the coffin, so to speak, were, okay, you read through all the shit that all these the musicians and band members were going through, what ultimately happened to them, and then the last thing you read is the album reviews at the end, and all the beautiful things that these reviewers were saying about the band, and giving them like 5 stars and this, that, and the other. And it was just so bittersweet at that point. It was like, my God, it's like, wow.
Yeah. I never really thought about that additional effect of adding that at the end. I mean, I guess, because like it's a dark book. Like
Yeah.
and, like the end is brutal. Like I remember sort of coming back through my edits, and because it was the first sort of longer thing I'd done, I was really worried about, am I burning things too slowly? Is there enough tension to sustain this? Because I knew that there was going to be a final act that was pretty kind of no holds barred. And so yeah, by the time I got there, and like, yeah, it's a tragedy, and it's a tragedy in the Shakespearean sense in that no one survives this. Which, spoiler alert, I think you're probably saying it's a tragedy enough. Does that? You look at your Sophoclean and tragedies, and people survive. It's more like you might be banished, or you might be cursed, or you might pluck your own eyes out, or whatever. But I really wanted this to just be like, bam, it's just this emptiness. And then I guess you're right, hitting that with the reviews afterwards, where they're not all positive, but they're mostly positive, and there's people talking about the talent, and it's this. And I think this is always the tragedy we talk about so much when we talk about the 27 Club and these kind of things. It's this waste of life. And even this week in the news, you've seen the young fella from One Direction. I know much about them, but how tragic! Like this young bloke with everything going for him, and obviously things happening in his life that aren't amazing, but yeah, just the full stop at the end, and then the outpouring of I guess sentiment. And I think I sort of alluded to this in the notes to the book. Shortly before I finished this, I was able to interview Trevor Sternat from the Black Dahlia Murder, who I'd interviewed him a couple of times previously when I was sort of working as a music journalist, and had met him a few times and had beers with him. And he was a really great human being, and he lost his life sort of shortly before I finished this. And I think it was weird because I couldn't ever really say that was a friend of mine. But it was also a person who I'd over 10 to 12, 15 years had spoken to on several occasions. And it was that first time really a celebrity death as an adult. And I use the term celebrity. I don't know if you could say this, but this personality, this public persona, that I was able to be like, after 3 or 4 days, I was like, I don't think I'm all right. This has affected me. And I know that it sounds so silly, but emotions are emotions for a reason. You're not always fully in control of them. You just need to understand them sometimes. And I think that having that there, and being a band that I'd listened to so much, that it's done, like it is. And so, and then you see the outpouring of emotion, and everyone's like, this guy was so wonderful, this guy was so good, this band, and regardless of whether it's your favorite band or not, I think everyone can recognize, like we're saying with the One Direction, these things are horrible, and it's this loss and these real people involved. And then you get that side of things. And I think sometimes that emotional outpouring is a big part of the catharsis afterwards. So maybe, coming back to my point, the effect of adding that there, which I didn't even think about because, it wasn't part of the original. It's the second edition stuff. Adds that nice thing. So, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. That sort of opened my eyes to a new kind of lens. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, that was just one of the things that hit me at the end, because it was like, all right, well, it wasn't enough that, because you almost get like a 2 or 3 endings to this book. I felt like, because to me the whole, and I'm to be kind of vague here, but I'm sure you'll know the part I'm talking about, because you wrote it. But the whole thing at the tomb, the whole showdown at the tomb, and then to find out later that I forget which one of the band members talked to somebody who was like, everything's fine over there. It's all I don't know what the fuck you talking about, It's like, and then we got like another showdown or thing after that. It's like, so
I really, I don't know if I'm talking too much, but when you think, like songs like Master of Puppets, they sort of end, and then they bring it back with the riff again, and it goes again. And so there's that. I wanted to sort of blend that kind of, that false ending that is kind of, again, a classic metal trope, but also the oh, this is our big bad. We have Anton sort of playing his role throughout, and you kind of think Anton is the big bad for most of the story, and like he's just another pawn who's working in service. And that's one of these. I think that really came from fantasy tropes. Like, how like you end of book 18, there's the huge big bad, but then like each book has its guy who they have to sort of level up the bosses, so to speak.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to put a bit of that, blend that with that, and yeah, no, that, again, absolutely, those false endings, and there was definitely more to say. It had to go on that bit, but yeah, the showdown at Tomb Studios. That's why I was like, okay, from here, now it's getting bloody, like, and yeah, so, but yeah, and also so the I think one thing, like the portal element, the demon opens portals for Oaks, and he's able to go to places and do things. But then, like, it doesn't always help him come back. Like, he's got to sort of, he's walking back along the road, and people are like, "So hang on, you're fresh out of rehab. You don't know how you got here. You're doing these things." So these things that I guess are kind of, they're almost like werewolf tropes. Realistically, he's had this change because he does become the demon that's he's invited into him. It overtakes him. The idea that I was originally playing with was he's promised these entities he can do what they want and he can help them achieve their goals. But when he fucks up, excuse my language, then it becomes, well, the demons are like, well, we still want what we're owed. This is a reaper now, and he wants these souls you've promised, regardless of whether everyone else wants them or not. And then, I think that coupled with, I think something that comes through my work a bit is this idea of manipulation. People doing things that, well, realistically, you're still making the choices, but are you being influenced into choices that you wouldn't personally appreciate? And I don't know what it is. I've never really sort of experienced that kind of thing in my life, but it's just something that kind of fascinates me as an idea. Maybe working, being a parent, being a husband, working with kids, that you see these influences in life and lots of social media, all these things that do that and just manipulate us into choices that, why did we do that? Yeah, so
yeah,
that's kind of a roundabout way of saying not a lot with a lot of words, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, alrighty. Well, as you know, as I explained to you before we started recording, usually when I have an author on, have them read a snippet from the book, just so we could get the feel of the writing style, or if you read a section, it could be your favorite section, or one that has a cliffhanger in it, or what is it?
Awesome. Well, I'll read a part from the Tomb Studios.
Okay.
Part there. I was going to go for the goat thing, but it kind of just doesn't fit right. So a little bit of context. Basically, what we've got here is Oaks has found his way back to the band through means that are his own, and they're not entirely honest. He's found his way back into the band, and now the demon that is inside him that he's promised he can give them the souls of everyone in the band so they can work for them. He's now got to perform a ritual that he thinks can get the band to go with him on this. And so basically he's drawn a big pentagram with fire. He's standing there, he's chanting. Everyone's standing around. They're all drunk. They've all been doing lots of drugs, and they're having a great time. And now this is unfolding within them. So I'm just going to cut in right in the midst of this and finish off with the little bit where we go through the cliffhanger.
All right.
So this is Oaks speaking now. The power is within us, he said. The power is ours. We only have to accept it, to promise to bring others to it. He clapped his hands again, and the shape, a bigger, stronger, more supreme shadow of Oaks cast by the flickering green firelight mirrored his movements. The singer beat his chest, bellowing, I have promised to bring in all of you, to deliver music to millions, and in turn to offer them. Nathan regarded the others. They were clearly seeing the same thing, but he didn't know what else he could do, at least not until Oaks clapped his hands 3 times and boomed, Om. Nathan immediately, with everyone else, repeated the process. Beat, 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 Om. The green flames licked up, and as Nathan followed them, he saw the sky had turned red. Somehow he knew he stood at the gate of a momentous decision, and that if he wanted it, he and everyone else in the band could have that red sky and everything that surrounded him. He was no longer in the courtyard of Tomb Studios. He was watching Polyphemus dominate a stage from the midst of a festival crowd. It was like watching something from the Moscow Monsters of Rock Festival. The audience was going apeshit. Oaks was leading them in a frenzy of rapturous moshing. He, Rusty, Spiros, they all windmilled maniacally as they whipped through the final riff of the morass, an ominous death prog piece. Lightning forked across the sky, and in the flashing light he saw that in this vision at least, all of them were shadowed by the hulking shapes. From inside the studio, feedback screeched. It hummed and curled and spiked through the night air, loud and oppressive. Before him, Nathan saw verdant flames lick the sky like tongues, and as well as the hulking shape that had previously shadowed Oaks, 4 more cavorted and convulsed around him. They moved in time with the feedback and the repetitive beating om that the other band members were still, that he was still chanting. Oaks exploded in fire. The green flames swallowed him, shining like an opal where they burned on his left hand. He lifted it and pointed directly at Rusty. Commit! Nathan wasn't sure he wanted what Oaks was offering, but this was some wild shit, and if it could give them the credibility they respect they'd always striven for, then he would accept. When his turn came, he would commit without question. What do I do? The bass player asked. Step forth. Kneel. Let it inside you. He stepped forward. Oaks laid a hand on Rusty's head, a faith healer curing a desperate leper of his illness. Flames erupted from his hand and engulfed Rusty, who screamed in agony. Oaks helped him to his feet. Go. Enter the ritual fire. Embrace your future. Nathan washed in awe. Rusty stepped into the flames and disappeared. And I'll leave it there.
And that is Polyphemus, coming out October 29th of 2024. Zachary, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
from the other side of the planet here. So now you have another book coming down the pipeline. One or two, I think. One of them is Purgatory Road. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Purgatory Road is a novelization of Mark Savage's. Well, it's an exploitation movie, really. Purgatory Road, which is this really cool kind of religious horror. It's kind of a road movie. He's actually an Australian director, but it's sort of set in Mississippi in the States, and it's a very US-centered story. But basically what you've got is this priest and his brother who, as kids, traumatic life, they witnessed someone break into their house, and they stole the money. Shortly after, dad has committed suicide, murdered mum at the same time, always blame themselves, and as they've sort of grown up, this idea of theft being the sin that is unabsolvable has been one. So as he gets his confessions in his traveling salvation van, he's murdering those who confess to the sin of theft. And obviously this can't go on, and there's a breakdown. There are other characters involved. The brother is conflicted by this, and it's a really nasty, gnarly story that has some pretty wild twists and turns as well. I don't want to give too much away. I just recommend watching Purgatory Road. It's a cool movie. It's pretty dark. It's sort of the one you're watching it and you're like, I kind of need to shower a little bit after watching it. It's pretty grimy, but it's fun if you like that kind of stuff. And just trying to bring that to life now. I'm probably about 5,000 to 10,000 words into the first few chapters, and just having a blast with thinking, how do I go beyond just what you see on screen and writing a play-by-play, which kind of defeats the point, and actually getting into the characters' heads and, doing these things. So that's a lot of fun. There's that. I'm not sure when the actual release date on that is. It's not due back to the publisher until middle of next year. That's also Encyclopocalypse, who do a ton of amazing novelizations. So I'm just really excited to be a part of that, and hopefully it can lead to more, because it's just fun. I think when you study writing, when you're writing, you're thinking, what can I do with these things? And obviously telling our own stories is the best. And again, talking to other people, some people love writing novelizations. Some people I was talking to someone who has written one, and he was like, I really didn't like writing for The Man because it was a big novelization, it was a big press, and they were like, here's the play-by-play that you've got to do. I've got a bit more freedom than that, and so I'm sort of able to explore the story and ask the director questions, and it's a really nice place to work because I just think it's fun to be able to take someone else's vision and help them realize it in another media. That not that they couldn't do it themselves, they've certainly written things, but yeah, just to play in that sandbox and do that, I think that's fun, and it's a nice experience to do. So, or to have, I should say, do an experience. But yeah, there's that, and then in February I have another novella coming from Unnerving, who published my first novella. That was Soul Survivor. That was killer koalas on a reality island. So I'm sort of really fascinated with animal horror. I've just did a panel on that at Complex in Australia with Aaron Dries and Matthew R. Davis and David McDonald, who are, great Australian authors. And that was a lot of fun. I think like animal horror is one of the things that's like it's really primal. I think before we had media, back when we were living in caves, that was where the real horror came from. Like, is the saber-toothed tiger going to eat me? And so I love playing with that sort of thing. But this, obviously, they're koalas, so they're a bit genetically modified. They're drop bears, and also in reality TV, they don't give a shit about the people on the screen. They just embarrass them, humiliate them for our entertainment. And I took that to the extreme, and so they're fun. But anyway, Trog, which I realised afterwards, there's an old movie named Trog. So I need to watch that and make sure it's not the same, or else I'll look like a right moron. But yeah, it's basically a home invasion story. But the home they invade, they don't know that it used to be owned by a guy who was getting together a travelling freak show, and he had captured the Australian version of the Bigfoot, the Yowie, and imprisoned it in the caverns below this mountaintop house.
Okay.
And so when the home invasion kicks in, they are like, what's beyond that door? And they're like, we don't know, but it makes horrible noises. And of course, they open the door. And so not only do they have to deal with 3 masked home invaders, there's also an angry cryptid that's hungry in the house as well. So it's a lot of fun. And, there's lots of blood and guts and viscera in that one. And it's a novella, so it's a simple story as opposed to, the big kind of unfolding personality clash that we have with Polyphemus. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about getting that one out there because it's pure popcorn, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I you mentioned about animal horrors, yeah, because I was looking in the background here, and I was like, okay, I'm looking for one of those big ass spiders you have over there in Australia to crawling up the wall. So I didn't see
I don't know
any.
if you saw on my Instagram, I caught a massive one the other day.
God.
My wife is like, what good is a husband who doesn't kill spiders? And I'm like, well, I'm not killing any spiders. So I always try and catch them and get them. And I caught this one the other day, and I was just like, all right, that's actually a pretty impressive huntsman. It was the size of my hand.
God.
If you look on the Instagram, you can see I'm sort of holding it up in a box next to my head, and you can see it with if it spread out, it would, a face hugger from Aliens kind of thing. So, but yeah, no, they definitely are around. And then the cats killed another one the other day, which it disappoints me a little bit, but they're cats. That's what they do. So.
Okay. Way to go, cats.
Yeah.
I like spider.
Yeah.
Well, if you mentioned Instagram, so if people want to find out more about you, see your huntsman spider, where would they go?
Yeah, look, if they just look up Zachary Ashford on Instagram, they're going to find me on there. It's there is a Zachary Ashford from the show Love Island. I always tell everyone I'm the sexy one.
Okay.
So yeah, that I'm on there. But it's pictures of horror books, and it's photos of animals that I find, and because I just love that shit. And yeah, you'll find me there. I am on Twitter. I got off it because, well, ethical reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
I went back on there just because I'm sort of querying a book for agents and stuff, and that seems to be a place that you can follow them pretty easily and watch the call outs. But
Well, I guess before I let you go, I guess I want to mention everybody, because we're talking about horror and heavy metal. I wore my ginger shirt here, so I came dressed for the job that you won. And that's,
Excellent.
so,
Yeah, I rock the Psychroptic, great Australian band from Tasmania. Yeah, they're pretty international, but
well, Zachary, thank you so much for coming into the dungeon from across the planet.
no, thank you. I had a good time, so appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. And so that is all from the dungeon, and we will see you next time.